Hello everybody, I'm SJM. Welcome back to FTB One. I'm on a re-record of this episode because I messed up the recording big time there halfway through. So I had made the quantum armor on camera, so we won't be doing that this time around because it's made now. But we can get into the Mahou Tsukai mod today because I wanted to explore some interdimensional teleportation and some other handy things that this mod does have to offer us in here. Just to quickly go over there, I made all of the quantum armor and then put some charge on the chest plate just to test it out. It does have built-in elytra flight automatically already, so no more need for my takeoff spell or regular, if you were using the powered elytra or regular elytra, swapping them in and out with your carbon chest plate, no more need for all of that. And the fireworks rocket just all works exactly like elytra now. The one thing I don't know yet is about the power ratio of damage to lightning bolts there. If it's any better than the carbon armor, because the carbon armor was just complete garbage on its thing. This has also got 15 times the capacity, but if it still drains just as fast, it's not really going to be that much good protection when you're in a, especially when I was fighting the blazes and the wither skeletons trying to get the skulls, all that damage over time effects really seem to chew right through the carbon armor. So we'll have to see about that in the future, but for today we're going to get into the Mahou Tsukai mod. So this is a good one to get into early because if you're even not using it, you can increase all of your magic reserve and your Mahou storage over time, because a lot of the good stuff in it is costs a lot of mana, but you only really need to do it once, so you just kind of need to do something really slowly over time to build up your the amount of mana storage that you have. So one of the very first things that I would do is just make the attuned diamond, and that is done just by making an attuner. And then you can either put in an emerald if you have it, if that's what you have to, because this one has a 5,000 Mahou capacity, whereas this one has 10,000. So for the cost, or if it's possible for you to just spend the diamond on it early, then get there and get this thing charging up so that you can get the mana stored. There are some ways to generate mana pretty quickly, but you need to idle, I think, for it to work properly. We'll go over that probably in the next episode, but today we'll just get through all of the basics. So yeah, first thing, attuned diamond, and then the other handy thing to have is a dagger, because we have to be damaged to ourselves. We have to get a status effect called bleeding on there. So if I just go ahead and poke myself with the dagger, you can see I've removed the mini-map with Control M, but now I have Bad Omen and this thing with this little blood, which if we look over here is the bleeding effect. So while we have the bleeding effect, we can draw the circle on the ground, and that would initiate, that's how you first find your Mahou, or start getting into the mod proper, right? So you'll have to draw the circle the first time to get there, and you'll start at 100 mana. To increase your maximum mana, it's good to spend your mana. And that also includes storing it in your diamond. So that's the best way to actually not only get some of this mana stored up, but also increase the maximum that you can have at one time, so that you don't have to fill up your diamond over and over, because every time you got to pull it out, charge it up, and then go on and do whatever other stuff that you were doing at the time while you're idly collecting this. So some of the other things that we'll need is this spell cloth, which is just using the dagger, which is the tricky part on the dagger is a couple of purple dye, but not really a big deal. And the book, I forgot the recipe for that one. You need 5 red dye, and so you'll need a little bit of dye to get going in here. And in the book, it'll explain everything for you. I'm going to be going over all of it, or I've already started going over it, but and then all of the spells are in these sort of not bolded text there. And there is a lot of spells, and I'll be going over the interesting ones that I have in there, but if you want to find there's other pretty cool things you can do with the mod that I won't be going over, so feel free to explore it on yourself. Oh, see, I've maxed out my Mahou now, so I'm going to go and start throwing it into my diamond. And you can see I went from 106 to 107 as a maximum because I spent some of my mana. Now, spending mana also includes casting spells, but that's extremely inefficient way to raise your maximum. But you can do, like, you can get bigger jumps, obviously. Like if you spend 5,000 mana on a spell, you get like plus 20 to your maximum mana instead of plus 1 that we do for just doing all this basic little spending by storing it up. The other things that we'll need is this powdered resources. So you'll just, for powdered eye, it's an eye of ender that you powderize. Powdered gold is gold, obviously. Ender is ender pearl. And you can do it either with the hammer, which gives you a 1-to-1 resource exchange, or you can make the mortar and pestle. So the mortar takes a diamond and the pestle takes 3 diamonds and 2 sticks, and then you put those two together to make the mortar and pestle, and this will give you a 2-to-1 ratio on your resources when you're doing it. So let's get a circle drawn onto the ground. So we'll make ourselves bleed and then hit the hotkey for it. Now originally this draw Mahaujin hotkey is set to M, and that's going to conflict with your map button, or it does conflict with the map button. So if you don't want to open the map every time you draw a circle on the ground, then rebind the key. I did mine just to comma for now because it's right there in the spot where it should be anyways. So you'll just aim at the block, and it always, even though I was aiming at this block 2 blocks away, it did it on the block that's next to me. You can only draw on one of the 8 blocks, I believe. Yeah, you can draw on any one of these 8 ones, not on the one you're standing on either. So the first time you'll do this, that's when you'll see your Mahou come up. You don't even have to have any of the powdered resources to cast a proper spell. You can just kill the circle after you're done with it. And that way you don't have it sitting there. But otherwise, if you wanted that kind of as base decoration, yeah, go for it. It doesn't go on walls, just goes on the ground as far as I know. But it also goes onto the spell cloth, and because some of the spells are only available in scroll form. So there's an example where it's on there, and then when I make a spell that goes into there, as you can see, it's actually got a memory. So if I just right-clicked with the empty hand, sort of like the way in Botania using the Petal Apothecary, well, you can repeat the last spell cast. So I'm actually going to do this one, and I'll just show you quickly in the book first, though. One of the first ones I would make if you're still in the exploration form is Ascension. Was it there? Did I just pass by it? There it is. So Ascension, this spell, when used without a cloth, will teleport anything on top of it to the highest solid Y value. So if you just have it as a circle on the ground, it'll just be on the circle. The scroll version will simply teleport the caster, which is what I want anyways, and it costs 30 mana to cast that every time. And it is done by putting gold, then ender, and like it says here, cloth is optional. It does 2 different things, right? If it's the circle, it will remain there permanently, and every time you walk on it, it'll transport you to the highest valid Y level. So if there was something above there, like say my 2nd floor to my base, then that would transport me up. I don't think there's a way to get down just yet with Mahou, so it's a one-way elevator at anyways. But in the scroll version, and I'll just see how I did that, and it right-clicked it onto there. As soon as I right-click again, I'll get the Scroll of Ascension. And what this guy will do is, say you're out exploring and you get into a cave system, you get all deep, you've got it all explored, but you want to keep exploring. You don't want to use your FTB utilities to like go, you know, back home or to a different place, right? You want to go back up to the surface and continue on exploring in a direction to find somewhere. So I'm at the end of my cave here. I just hit the ascension, and then I can go up to the surface, and then I can continue on exploring in a direction. One bad thing about that, as you saw, it uses up the scroll every time. So I believe this scrolls stack. I haven't tried that much yet. As you can see, I'm still just getting into the mod. So I'll be building up my Mahou so that we can get up to some of the cooler spells at the end. But the reason that I went over initially that I want to get in here is for interdimensional travel. So there's one in the book that does say specifically across dimensions is this equivalent displacement. So this one is a no cloth spell, so it can only be put on the ground. You can't get a scroll version of it. And basically what it will do, it will exchange places with two things that are on the circles. Obviously one of them I want to be me, but if we need another thing on the other one, my initial thought was if we could just leave the chunk unloaded, you could just throw something onto the ground and it would always be sitting there. But it does say in here the chunks must be loaded, so that's not an option because the item just on the ground will despawn immediately as soon as we teleport away, right? So the other thing I was thinking was there is the familiar. So we summon a familiar, we can recall the familiar to us. So say it's somewhere in the world, we can cast the recall familiar spell, that'll bring it to us. And that's done only on a scroll, I believe. Yeah, it's cloth required, so that's only a scroll. But the other one is familiar exchange. Now in the description here, it doesn't say anything about cross dimensions. But if the familiar exchange doesn't work going to the end, say, or say another dimension that you want to have this set up, then you can have your familiar stay on the block, and you might have to trap him in there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but just have him stay on top of the block for your equivalent exchange spell. And even though the chunk is loaded, he won't despawn because he's technically a named mob, right? Won't ever despawn. So that's my two thoughts for doing that. I'll have to do some testing in between episodes here because I'm trying to keep all of these guys in the 10 to 15 range, so for easy consumptions. So yeah, that's been the jumping into point of Mahou and the main reason why I'm getting into it. Like I said, there's other really cool things that you can do in the mod. Encourage you to explore some of them, especially the ones that cost really high amounts of mana. Those are hints on the coolness of them, but there's also some minor neat things that you can do with them, like you can make little holograms on your armor, or not on your armor, on your person basically, and enhance your look like that. So that's the back of the helmet and the suit, and the front and the helmet of the suit. And I wanted just one of my rockets, man. Oh, I guess we got to choose the rockets. Oof. So that took about 300,000. I think it was at 4 million when I did that. Okay. I cannot fly in third person mode yet. I will get that down at some point. So you'll notice how sometimes when I'm using the rockets, and you'll probably have noticed this many times before when you're placing blocks, there is a double click bug in the game right now. So thankfully I've got unlimited gunpowder and paper, so I don't have to worry about wasting the rockets 2 to 1 every time. But just so you know, and because it was driving me crazy, and I just found out about it this week. But yeah, that is a known bug. They're working on it, and hopefully they'll have it resolved soon. Anyways, I do appreciate you all for checking out the episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.